expectations. So this is the 8 breath pattern kind of laid out on the floor. This is why I've put trousers on today, because I knew I was going to walk along. Like most things in any kind of process design, it starts with a need. It starts with a call. There's always a call for everything. Sometimes the call comes from somebody inside your organisation that wants to do something. That's a particular kind of call. Can you do this for our organisation, or can you host this conversation for us? This conversation needs to happen. But sometimes the call comes from you because you sort of feel the need to do something. You've got a sense that actually this needs to happen, and I'm the one whose name's on it. And once that kind of finds you, it's quite hard to let that go. So I'm thinking about Max calling this Art of Hosting. You know, it's a sense that something could be different around here. And actually I'm going to step forward and I'm going to step into it. I'm going to take that call or that need or that sense of wanting to do something. And I'm speaking it because asking at the very beginning of a process, who is the caller, is quite a useful question to ask, because it also helps you situate the whole process within a wider field. So who is asking for this? And then I think asking who is really asking for this, because sometimes there's a sense, can we do this for the community? But actually the community isn't even asking for it. So what's the call in us? And how do we know the call in the community? So I'm going to ask more questions than I'll give you answers, really. These are questions to ask at all stages of the process. And the kind of, in the way the caller's sort of saying, I'm willing to hold this, but who's willing to step in here with me? Who's willing to come into this? It's not always work, it's like life purpose too. Who's willing to step in here with me? And how can I bring in others? Because being a caller can be quite lonely. It's something you feel yourself, but who's going to come with you? Who's going to be able to support that? Who also feels the same call that you do? And the advice at this stage is to not move too fast. There's that lovely African proverb, isn't there? Like, slow down to go faster. If you feel a call and you feel you want to do something, our temptation is to get on and kind of do it as soon as possible. But this, as you can see, is the divergent stage, and the meeting really happens in the middle. But often we go from calling to meeting and then acting. We sort of move quite quickly through that process. So what's really at stake if we do this is another good question to ask. What's really at stake here? And what's at stake for all the different parts of the system that might want to be meeting together? Many times when I get asked to do work, they ask me to do the work that they want me to do, not the work that they would like to offer to the participants. So what's at stake for the people that you're calling together? And what are they going to get out of it? How are they going to move forward with it is again another good question to ask. And if this is the kind of, I don't like the word, but if this is the project here that you're going to work on, all of this over here is like the pre-ject phase. It's the before project phase. It's before you actually get going on anything. And I want to suggest that here in the call is also the reject phase. You know, there's just some things that you just maybe shouldn't do. Either because the timing's not right, or the conditions aren't right, or it just doesn't feel right. And we get very attached to our calls, and we get attached to things that we think need to happen. You know, and looking at the need, we do a lot of stuff that often we don't need, isn't needed. So it's worth really spending time thinking about the call and the whole piece around this in the first place. So call is the first breath. And then the second breath is to take some time to really get clear, to really find some good clarity. both as the caller, but also as anybody else who's involved in designing or bringing that conversation together and bringing those people together. And if you go away with one thing, and I think you've already got it, it's like purpose, 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 purpose. It's like ask 7 times, you know, kind of, can you go further and further into purpose? And we get very frustrated with talking about purpose, you know, it's like vision statements, we hate them. But there's a difference between a vision statement and a real, true purpose. When somebody speaks a clear, honest purpose, it rings and everybody gets it. And you have to dig quite hard to really find the purpose. And when I say that, I mean things like, is the purpose just to build community or network? Is the purpose to share and reflect? Or is the purpose actually to do together? So there's something about the simple levels of purpose. Why are we actually bringing this group of people together? Because when you bring them together, you need to be able to explain it. You need to offer that in the invitation. So getting some really good clarity about purpose is important. Thinking about a project I was involved in called the Finance Innovation Lab in London, who had this purpose and this calling question, which was, what would it be to create a financial system that served the people and the planet? And you can hear that they worked for a long time on that question. It's a simple question. The simple ones take longer. And they worked for maybe a year or so until they realised that actually their real true purpose was cultural change. It was a cultural shift, a paradigm shift that they were after. It wasn't actually to change the finance system, because everyone kept saying, what have you done to change the finance system? And it's so big and so complex. So they were thinking on purpose, they got deeper. They realised there was a deeper purpose there. So just giving you a sense of what I mean by that. Another big piece of advice is do not go alone. Don't do this work on your own. It's too tough. It takes too much holding. There's too much going on. We were a team of 8, I think, altogether to hold this training. And this is a tough one, because if somebody asks you to come in and do things and you want to bring 3 or 4 people with you, often they don't want that to happen. But you really need to be able to cover the bases of hosting the process, hosting the space and the energetic, and then hosting the logistics and harvesting. You heard this morning, the harvesting team had felt this is a big job, and it often doesn't get the weight that it needs, it often doesn't get the people that it needs. So form a core team, find people to work with. Here you might have found people that you actually could now start working with. Host each other's processes. If you're in a company and you want to do something with your team, maybe you're not the person to host that because you're in it, but maybe there's somebody else here who could come and do it for you for practice, and then you could go with them as well. So I'm just saying the core team and the sense of going in there with your mates is really, really important.
Yeah. Just a quick question on that, because this is the phase where I feel I am a lot of the time, and it's this decision between, do you ask the people to volunteer, or do you pick people out and ask them?
Yeah.
So sometimes people will join with you if you actually honour them by asking them, if you like.
Yeah.
Rather than saying, okay, so I'm looking for someone to join me.
Yeah.
Because there's this kind of cultural thing which is, don't volunteer.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if you've got a really clear purpose and a really clear call, they'll come because they hear that. That's what they'll come for. And if they don't come, you might need to do more work on that. And of course people like to be invited, so you can make the invitation, but then who shows up? Who's really with you in that? And I'm talking about a much bigger thing here than a day's event, for example. But I think if it's clear, it's like a light, people are attracted to it. We shouldn't be pushing anybody in. And then of course when they come, you have to give up, right? You have to share. That's the thing. If it's a team, you have to lose some of the things that maybe you felt were important in order for them to be able to join and actually take it with you, rather than just kind of hang around the side of it. So.
Linda, can I ask you a question while you're answering that? Why do you not like the word project and nevertheless use it?
Yeah, because I use it because they exist. There is such a thing as projects. They're there, they're a reality. I don't like them because they seem to mean something that's maybe outside of us, like something we do. I kind of feel like I am my work. So the project piece boxes it a little bit for me. It's just a personal way that I see work. But I realise that in the room there are many different contexts here. So there are some people working in places where projects is the language that happens. Does that make sense? At the clarity stage, it's really useful to develop this cold calling question. So I've done a lot of work with questions and know the kind of challenge of really finding a question that kind of nails it. But the calling question is the thing that invites the team, and it's also the thing that invites all the people to the event, or to the process, or to the life work that you're calling in. And it was interesting, this question around this calling question here, which, you know, invited a lot of people from Brighton because that was a question for Brighton. But also what happens here is people, I guess some of you have come because you want to be on the Art of Hosting. So there's many levels that are happening in this room. But if you're really setting out something that you want to call people into a conversation, a good, clear calling question that people kind of understand what you're working with will also help to really land people's understanding and expectation of what it is when they get there. And what's the most powerful question you can develop for that work? And don't stick with it. The questions might change over time. But all of this is around the kind of clarity stage. It's really helpful to develop some shared principles. We had a question yesterday about the values in the Art of Hosting. I'm going to go back and I'm going to ask that question in the Art of Hosting. What are our values? That's such a good question. And we often don't give time to it, you know. And then, what do values mean? Like, can we get below those, we will be like this, we will be like that, but actually we won't. You know, can we really get to what we mean by values? Can we give it time to do it? Because that helps the core team to found if everybody's actually involved in the values piece. And some principles, some ways of working. This is where you start working on your harvest at the clarity stage. You know, what do we actually want to get out of this thing that we're calling? And it's not the outcome. It's not the outcome. Because the outcome is what you set out to achieve. The harvest is what you actually happens in the process that you want to record. That's quite a difference, actually. The outcome's set beforehand. That's more of an aspiration. But how are we going to harvest this? How are we going to know what to do with people when they come, with all the data and the information that comes out of what we're working with? What are the givens? What are the givens within this? What are the boundaries within which we're going to work? Because there are boundaries, right? Community consultations, how many times have they been done when the answer's already there? Or actually they ask the community, what do you want to do about this? But they're actually not really handing that over. But if you ask the community, what do you want to do about this? And this is the situation within which we're making that conversation and those decisions, it actually helps people to see the bigger picture. So what are the givens within it is always worth paying attention to. I'm kind of racing through this, but I think it's okay. The third stage, so you're kind of starting to move into a bit more the emergent stage. Because if anything, when people say, what is the difference between facilitation and hosting? I actually think the difference is that we are designing for emergence. We're not designing so much for convergence. We're designing to enter this middle space here that enables us to move towards that space. Often with facilitation, it's can you facilitate my team accepting this new strategic plan? That's a very different kind of approach to it, really. So the invitation is beginning to enter into the sort of more emergent phase. Please give your invitation time. How many times do you get, you know, like the meeting's in 2 weeks' time and there are 400 people there, can you send out an email, please? Which is never going to do it, you know. Is there a way of making your invitation more inviting? Does it have to be an email? Can you hit the phones? Can you actually go out and speak to people? Can you design some beautiful thing that has some some artwork to it, or could it be in the form of music? Could it be something where people go, oh, that's a little different. I'm leaning into that. That attracts me. That makes me want to come. When you're inviting, think about who is at risk of exclusion here. Who are we not inviting? Who have we not seen is always a good question. And that isn't about getting representatives. I kind of hate that thing. We've got to have one man, we've got to have one woman, we've got to have a black woman, a disabled Asian person. It's kind of, but it's what we do, right? I've seen it happen. But asking at the invite stage, not at the point where you get in the meeting and you look around and you realise you don't have the diversity in the room. So it's important to kind of bring it in here. And can your invitation trigger real curiosity? Can it really truly be an invitation which kind of comes from the call in question? So then we're kind of moving into the meeting stage where you actually bring people together. And before the meeting, obviously, is the designing of whatever it is that you're looking to put on. What is it that needs to be explored? What actually is the content of what you're trying to explore here? How, in your design, can you hold some space for emergence, for what you don't know already, for what just absolutely isn't present? And what will support convergence? Because you don't necessarily, like you said, it's a good place to be, but you don't want to live here. What would actually support that? And I think in that meeting, there's the thinking about the next stage, which is the next clarify meeting, and kind of moving on. So if you're thinking over here about where it's going, what, even though you don't know, but what's the next stage in the process, that helps when you meet with people because you can explain a bit more of a journey that's happening. Lots of different tools and methods that we've used on these 3 days. I really want to emphasise that they are just tools. They're the knife and fork you eat the dinner with. So it's the question and the purpose that's the food. There is no, we have to do it like this. There is no, we have to put open space in here and World Cafe in there. You can actually move them around depending on what you're trying to achieve. But always, I would say, always without fail, find some way to open, find some way to check in, whatever's appropriate to the context, and find some way to check out at the end. There's that saying, Confucius, I think, in beginnings and endings, be careful. Something like that. I'm sure you'll know that better than me, but there's a sense that we have to watch the bookends. So check-ins and check-outs are good when you're having a meeting. How many times do you go to meetings or go to a conversation or go to a group and you don't know who's there, so you don't know how safe it is to speak what you want to speak? It's really difficult. I've seen great groups of people turn into monsters the minute the agenda hits the table. But if you can bring back some of that, a little bit of that humanity, a little bit of the human normalness, if there is such a thing, then that really helps to kind of help the place where people meet together. Think about the space in which you meet. We talked about in the World Cafe the creating of hospitable space. If I can, I go and check out buildings before I work in them, because the energetics of a building and the air in the building and the connection with nature, or the big swirly carpet, these have quite an impact on the kind of meetings that you have with people. Where have I gone? I've gone into the space that sometimes people have said, what's the most difficult thing about your work? And it actually is the room. It actually is the room. And maybe because I feel more comfortable with this, but it's finding a good room and having people, I've had people say, you want a circle? I've had, conference organisers physically unable to make circles because it's such a foreign concept, but just changing the structure of how people meet. Having small tables is really hard. You get those big conference tables, no one can actually talk over them. So, paying attention to stuff like that, and then when people come in, how is it really, really welcoming what's on the table? Yesterday in cafe we had some little snacks and some candles, tiny things like that. Attention to that kind of detail can really make a difference to how people are when we meet. So you're in the meeting, people are in the conversation, they're clear about what they're meeting about, and there comes a moment when all of this emergence needs to start moving towards here. And I think this is a really tender little moment, actually, the moment of acting and following up and people making commitments and saying, yes, I will do that. I think you actually have to host this. You have to really invite, if you want people to make commitments to act and to do something, and this is a big frustration, I know, for a lot of activists and community workers, the community don't step up. I think that's because they're not really invited and they're not really sure what that means. They don't really understand what that is. So there's something maybe that we have to do that facilitates that action. And if you do that too fast, that's when you get a lot of resistance, you get a lot of pushback. Because it's like your need for them to act rather than their need for them to act. It's not kind of coming from within, from them. But you do need to think about how you're going to support that action. It's not okay to bring people together to decide to do something with the garden at the end of the estate if after the meeting you just leave it. Oh, that's good, we've got a group, they're going to do it. How are we going to follow that through? How are we going to take it on? And how can you acknowledge people's participation? How can you really honour what they're offering to do? And I do think there comes a moment in a meeting, and I call it the aha moment, where the group almost seems to move towards something. And it's how alert you can be to that aha moment. Too soon and you'll lose it, too late and you'll lose it as well. You'll end up in sort of this space here.
Max's graffiti this morning when he posted.
Oh yes, yeah.
It was phrased in a provocative manner was part of that thing there. That if you get lost in the wonder, then at some point you have to do the things in front of you.
Absolutely,
So,
yeah. And that's chaotic. That is structure and order and chaos, isn't it? Did you see the graffiti this morning? Do you want to read it out? You got it?
Yeah, sure.
Seen this way on the way in this morning.
Don't give way to wonder. Do not abandon yourself to amazement. Pay attention, pay attention. Look at what we're doing, and then do it. Do it. And just want to point to, as human beings, what I notice all the time, especially on Facebook, is we look at things as being mutually exclusive. It's like, it's either wonder or amazement, or it's action. And we attach ourselves to one or the other. But the beauty here is to hold two potentially opposing truths and still move forward.
Yeah.
Holding on to the wonder, the amazement, the imagining what could be, what might be, feeling possible, and then looking down at the ground what's in front of us now.
Yeah, nice. So, moving swiftly on, and I'm aware we're rushing it, but I think it's enough actually. I think for where we are and what we've experienced together and what we know, the beauty of these simple tools is that they do hold some of this quite well. They do hold both the possibility for really exploring, and harvesting helps the action. Harvesting is the sense-making piece that sits in there that helps people to see what's happened so they can feel and understand what the action might be. Often when you're in a conversation, you don't really know what you're saying. It's only when you look at the traffic board and you go, oh, that's what we said. Wow, yeah, that's what we said. Let's honour that because we said that. So something about really taking those harvesting pieces and showing that back to people so that they will, here we are, we're in harvest, right? So that the harvest supports the action because it shows what's actually being said. It captures more of a collective sense of what's being said. And as James spoke, the harvesting is about making sense together. And when you're working with a group of people, it's their sense, it's for them to make the sense. Be very wary as a host or as a facilitator or someone who's supporting the process of it being your sense-making alone or your core team sense-making alone. If you can have in your system, right the way through, the very people who you're wanting to bring together, you will get a very rich source of information, particularly those that actually have got a very opposite view. That's a very helpful thing to have, because there's some useful information in that. When we were talking with the resistance group, we were saying that when there's resistance, there's very useful information in resistance. So lean into it and find out what it's got to say, and find out where that's coming from, because it kind of holds something that in the wonder we sort of forget to see, really. So it is important, this whole piece of harvesting, and then this is the one that I think we never really know. We always talk about it really well, but it's a reflection piece. So having gone right through this, which is this here, but just for today is, there's a way of seeing it. There's something about sitting down together and reflecting. So what did we see in that? What did we learn? What came out of it? What happened? What was our intention? Did it follow through? What happened in the emergent zone? What did we notice? Because this kind of learning piece is like the double loop that loops back into the next thing you do. And I feel like I'm sort of telling you off, really, telling you what to do, but I know I don't often do this as well, because there's often not the space. But if you plan it in, if it's actually part of the process design that you're doing, some kind of reflection, that will be really helpful. So those are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 breaths. And the 8th breath is an interesting one. There's often in a process somebody who is holding the whole. There are many of us that might get involved in different pieces of work or different calls and come to be part of something, but there usually is somebody who's holding all of it, who's actually the breath of holding the whole piece and being able to see the overview. And this is not necessarily the boss, but there's a holding that goes beyond the doing and the being in. And just to speak within the art of hosting on the kind of bigger pattern, there is a holding of the art of hosting which we call stewarding. So there are a group of people who steward this pattern and just lightly hold it, to hold the core integrity of it in a light and sometimes very confusing way, but are sort of needed like the elders actually, who will just hold stuff. Might not actually even get involved in it, but just hold the integrity to what's there. So I'll finish there. It was half an hour, but maybe just 5 minutes, just to. What I suggest is you just turn to somebody and just, because there's not time for all the questions, just what landed there, what sense does that make, what questions does that bring up for you? Just turn to somebody and just